number 4, west of Maple Park, along north of Gypsy Lane.
This is an application. This is an outline application of all matters reserved for the erection of up to 575 dwellings, including a mixed-use neighbourhood centre, public open space, footpaths, cycleways, water attenuation basins and associated infrastructure, including the realignment of Gipsy Lane. The site is located west of Maple Park and north of Gipsy Lane and marks the southern edge of the urban boundary of Nuneaton and extends over 28 hectares in total. The site is bounded by Gipsy Lane to the south, the Coventry Canal to the west, and Griff Brook and playing fields of George Eliot School to the north, and Wenbrook to the east. There are a number of mature trees on site which are arranged in 2 columns, and these delineate historic field boundaries. The site exhibits good linkages to the nearby National Cycle Network, both Nuneaton and Bedford town centres, the existing town centre train stations, and the more recently moved Park Station on St George's Road. There have been 22 objections from 20 addresses, and 1 from Councillor Condaka. Notwithstanding the level of objection received, the application is being presented to committee at the request of Councillor Joe Shepherd. The key issues to assessing the determination of this application are the principle of the development, visual amenity and landscape character, residential amenity, highway safety, traffic flows and accessibility, flood risk, ecology, green infrastructure improvements, and planning obligations. The site is allocated for housing in the Borough Plan under policy HSG3. The policy sets out how this strategic site will be developed for residential use, but this is also to include a mix of community uses. The key development principles included in the policy mention that this land will provide circa 575 dwellings in a mix of dwelling types and sizes, plain open space facilities, footways, cycleways, and provision of on-site bus infrastructure and contributions for various off-site provisions. The site is located within the Nuneaton and Bedford urban fringe landscape character area, which is deemed to be more of a moderate value in need of an enhancement to conservation of farmland, hedgerows and trees. However, the evidence indicates that this specific site is of a lower value and sensitivity than the wider character area, and therefore has the capacity to accommodate residential development without causing substantial harm to the character of the area. As this is an outline application, there could be many different final forms of the development, since the details are reserved for consideration later. That said, given the indicated amount of open space provided, especially that which flanks the site on the eastern side and that to the north, regard as being had to the existing setting, and it is considered that the site adequately addresses the setting of the area. With regards to the impact on residential amenity, the nearest residential properties are those to the north, east of Braystone Road, and to the immediate north of Red Deeps. These residential properties will be separated from the site by a good amount of open space and green landscaping. And while the reserve matters will dictate the final layout, there are no concerns over the loss of residential amenity as a result of this development. All distance standards in the Council's adopted residential design guide are more than met in the illustrated master plan submitted with the scheme. With regards to highway safety, the applicant has submitted a transport assessment to assess the highways and transport implications of the proposed development. It is proposed that the access will be gained via 2 new junctions with Gipsy Lane. Furthermore, Gipsy Lane will be realigned within the site in order to remove a sharp bend that is subject to a local safety concern. This would improve safety, and along with the introduction of lighting and potentially a reduced speed limit and gateway features, would further enhance road safety. The junctions and road alignment have been designed in such a way that buses could potentially access the site in the future, and indeed has been requested by Highways that a bus service would be partially funded by development through a Section 106 agreement. This potential for a bus service helps to increase the sustainability of the proposal. The transport assessment concludes that the proposed development will have no material adverse impact on the operation of the nearby road network and would be accessible to a range of services and facilities, enabling journeys by sustainable modes of transport consistent with policy. The response from the Highway Authority is one of no objection, subject to conditions and planning obligations, which are considered acceptable by officers. With regards to flood risk, part of the applicant's site along the northern and eastern boundaries is within flood zones 2 and 3. The NPPF requires that consideration is given to the potential impact of flooding and new development, whilst also ensuring that flood risk is not increased elsewhere as a result of the development. As such, the applicant has submitted a flood risk assessment with the application. This was subsequently assessed by both the County Flood Risk Team and Environmental Agency. The County Flood Risk Team have no objection but have requested conditions to be added. Similarly, the Environment Agency raised no objection subject to conditions. These conditions have been agreed with the applicant and these will be added to any approval. It is considered that the conditions proposed will adequately mitigate any potential impact on flood risk, and this complies with policy NE4 of the adopted borough plan. With regards to planning obligations, policy HS1 of the borough plan states that development will be required to provide infrastructure appropriate to the scale and context of the site in order to mitigate any impacts of the development and address the needs associated with the development. The NPPF sets out that the planning obligations should be considered with otherwise unacceptable development. However, paragraph 56 of the NPPF notes that these obligations should only be sought when they meet all the following tests: necessary to development, directly relating to development, and fair and reasonable. The applicant has agreed to pay over £5,500,000 towards infrastructure requirements across the borough, including to education, canal improvements, road turnover bridge, highways, as well as providing to 144 affordable housing units. Nonetheless, councillors should note that the applicant has refused to agree to a request submitted by NBC's Sports Development and Leisure Team and Parks and Countryside Team, as in the applicant's opinion, they are not so compliant. The Sports Development Team have requested funding for swimming pools, sports halls, community halls, athletics, cycling, artificial grass pitches, whilst plain open space was requested for destination parks and maintenance of those parks. However, planning officers differ on this, as there will be an identified need for sports facilities as a result of the development. Likewise, there will be increased use of borough's highest level of park provision. Riversley Park and Miners Welfare Park. Both of these requests for planning contributions are necessary, directly related and fair and reasonable. In regards to the sports development contributions, officers have pointed out that elsewhere in the Borough Plan, Policy SA1, it makes particular reference to community sports and physical activity facilities. Officers also point out that the site is referenced within the infrastructure delivery plan, which refers to sports and physical activity facilities. However, the applicant has correctly pointed out that within Strategic Housing Site Policy, HSG3, neither sports development monies nor destination park contributions are included as a necessary requirement of the development. They also point out that all of the strategic sites within the Borough Plan do require sports development monies and destination park contributions. Consequently, the applicant contends that these two requests cannot be included. With regards to the impact on ecology, the NPF outlines the need to minimise the impact of proposed developments on biodiversity, as well as contributing to and enhancing these where possible. It particularly highlights the need to consider the impact on ecological networks, protected wildlife, priority species and priority habitats. Consequently, the applicant has submitted an ecological planning report with the application. The report consists of a full desktop study, an extended Phase 1 habitat survey and a range of field surveys for endangered species which may be present on the site. The desktop study confirmed there are no international, national and locally designated sites within a 2-mile radius of the site, other than Griff Hill Quarry, which is recognised for its geological value. In regards to habitats on the site, the Phase 1 survey identified several types of habitat which fall within the site boundary. The site is predominantly arable land which is interspersed with mature trees, bordered by water courses, tall ruderal vegetation, scrub and hedgerows. The ecological survey provided by the applicant has surveyed the site with protected notable species in mind, covering foraging and community bats, as well as badgers, waterfalls, birds and reptiles. The Warwickshire Wildlife Trust has been consulted and raised no objection to the scheme, subject to conditions, which are to be added as part of any approval. With regard to the provision of green infrastructure, the application proposes a good deal of open space. In fact, a total of 8.74 hectares of this across the site. There is also to be 3 surface water attenuation basins extending to some 1.9 hectares. No are not used as a formal open space, they are to be kept permanently open to attenuate surface water. Conditions are likely to be included as to ensure that there is provision of a community park on the site. The Nottingham Bedford Borough Council Parks team have responded with an objection to the scheme on the grounds that parts of the indicative layout and master plan do not do enough in regards to footpaths to access open space and to facilitate movement across the site. However, this will be covered by details to be submitted with suggested conditions and obligations in the legal agreement. It is therefore recommended to the committee to approve the application subject to conditions in the agenda addendum and signing the Section 106 agreement.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you. Councillor Tracy Shepherd. Not here. Councillor Condicle.
Thank you very much, Chair and Planning Committee. I'm still very unsure what's happening over this turnback bridge. If we look in the borough plan, we now actually have a policy HSG3 for this site, And it would have been nice if this had been fully reproduced in the document, because this is actually what we're doing. We've had a planning inquiry, we've looked at HSG3, and we've got a whole lot of policies that clearly say what we should be doing. And absolutely clear in this, at point 10, is the Canal Turnback Bridge. And it says, development proposals will investigate the suitability of the Turnback Bridge, not may, will. And if possible, financial contributions will be sought for its delivery. Where demonstrated that this delivery would not be technically feasible, an alternative bridge provision will be provided. So it is clear in here, we can't just have the Turnback Bridge as a maybe. Well, we should have already done a feasibility study according to the borough plan to see whether the use of the Turnback Bridge could be used. And the Turnback Bridge is really, really important. If you look at the documentation, look at the map on the screen, on the west side, which is the left for people who don't know east and west, the site has a canal. And the only place to cross that canal is Gipsy Lane, which has no footpath and is a very fast road, or halfway along there's a Turnback Bridge which then takes you round the edge of Falklands Farm and could potentially be a brilliant route into Bermuda Park Railway Station, the Coventry Road where there's buses to Coventry, Bedworth, Leicester. The Coventry Road has a bus every 10 minutes. So this Turnback Bridge is really important. And at the Borough Plan Inquiry, we made the point that there needs to be a high quality route from this site that is lit all the time. We can't have people walking through Griff Hollows at 5 o'clock on a winter's evening. The connectivity is really, really important. And it's actually in the Borough Plan. We actually have a policy clearly says this will be studied to see if the Turnback Bridge is viable, and if it's not viable, we will actually provide an alternative bridge, and it goes on about other things about historic, etc. We also in this have quite a bit in the Borough Plan about the road and the improvement to the road. We have bits in the Borough Plan making sure that we respect the trees, because obviously the Gipsy Lane is a key corridor of trees. They're really, really important. We will lose, and we have to lose, some trees to actually straighten out the road. But we really need to reinforce the trees along there. And if you look at the master plan, it is really light on trees and green infrastructure on the south side. They've got this big park area, they put it all together. But actually people living on that estate, the canal side and the Gipsy Lane side are far weaker in terms of open space and trees. So I do think we need to look and maybe make sure if we don't agree this, actually have terms.
Are there any points of clarification? Councillor Llewellyn Nash.
I just wondered why Darren...
It's a point of clarification
Oh,
to the speaker.
oh, sorry, no.
Right, okay. Are there any points of clarification to the speaker? No? Okay, thank you. Bill Shepherd. Andrew Wintersgill. Try the one next to you.
That's my chair, that one. I rigged it.
That's better.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andrew Wintersgill, a partner of David Locke Associates, planning consultants and the applicant Trentport Investments. By my side is Chris Hall, the director of Trentport, who will help me to answer any questions you might have. This evening is the culmination of nearly 10 years of effective joint working with your officers in seeking to bring forward this well-located site on the southern edge of Nuneaton for high-quality residential development. That joint working has found expression in the planning performance agreement between ourselves and the council. We understand this is the first planning performance agreement this council has entered into. It has cemented a successful working relationship between us. Council's approval of this application has been held up by the long delays in preparing and adopting the borough plan. Indeed, your officers recommended an approval as long ago as 2014, well before the plan was adopted. The committee's refusal at that time was solely because the site had not yet been released from the Greenbelt and allocated for housing in the final version of this plan. 5 years later, following the council's adoption of the plan last month, no impediments to the grant of outline permission remain. The application is fully in accordance with the plan. The government's national planning policy framework requires such applications to be approved without delay. This site was probably the least contentious of all of the council's strategic housing sites during the preparation of the borough plan. Your approval of our application this evening will be a textbook example of planning as it should be, produce a plan and approve an application according with it without hesitation. Your approval of our application this evening would not only enable up to 575 much needed homes to be built without further delay, but would also release up to 144 affordable homes, 25% of the total number of homes in accordance with council policy, making significant contributions towards meeting local housing needs. But this development wouldn't be in their housing estate. We made provision for a new neighbourhood centre on the site, which could accommodate local shops and community facilities. And we also propose a new community park containing a wide range of play facilities with an extensive new public open space on the northern and eastern sides of the site. In all these ways, our application proposals will benefit existing residents of the area, as well as providing a high-quality living experience for residents of the development itself. No fundamental objections to our application remain. In particular, highways and transport issues are fully resolved to the satisfaction of the Highway Authority. We've agreed the detailed wording of the conditions to be attached to any permission with your officers. The drafting of the Section 6 agreement is already very well advanced, such that the agreement can be completed shortly. You will also determine Arbour's application for an employment development on the adjacent Falkland site a little later this evening. We have worked closely with the Arbour team in taking forward our respective proposals, including in providing for a cycle and pedestrian connection between the two developments via the turnover bridge over the canal. A feasibility study has been completed and Section 106 contributions will be made. Our residential development perfectly complements Arbour's employment provision. We urge you to approve both applications.
Thank you, Mr. Winterskill.
Thank you very much.
Are there any points of clarification? No? Okay, thank you. Mr. Baxter.
Good evening. I've had a quick skim through the documents. Most of the issues on my mind have been covered, like the wildlife waterholes, stuff like that. Councillor Condacor started to touch on the turnover bridge issues. I think there is a big issue there that does need resolving, but I can tell you the bridge is owned by Canal and River Trust, so hopefully they're here today to help address any issues relating to that bridge. So you can't just go plodding over there making changes to that bridge without their consent. It is a listed bridge as well. It's in the register of listed buildings. It's 200 years old. Any materials and techniques will have to be sympathetic to that. The footpath you intend to link to on the opposing side of the canal to the development, the Falkland Farm side, is about 200 to 300 yards of footpath. That is in really, really poor condition. The towpath side, the main side, is what Canal and River Trust call their ideal towpath, footpath. It's got the verge, the footpath, and then another verge, and then the hedge.
It's not Jamaica.
Oh, sorry. It's a bit excitable tonight. So the opposing side of the canal, the footpath side there, to bring that up to full standard, you're going to have to knock in steel pilings over 200 to 300 yards, which will be costing about £25 per inch. And if you do the maths, the contribution here, which Canal and River Trust have indicated, is £22,500. They're asking similar from the Falkland Farm development, £50,000 won't touch it. You're going to need at least £500,000 to bring the bridge up to standard and that footpath up to standard to link the whole thing into Griff Hollows. There's a lot of head shaking. There's precedence for the piling work accessible from Canal and River Trust. It is around about £25 per foot for piling. You've got to get contractors in.
Excuse me.
But like I say, you need to straighten out the deal with Canal and River Trust on this. They'll want some sort of dowry for long-term maintenance. It won't be a county council footpath, it will still be owned by Canal and River Trust. And then, you know, you've got to get the workers in. They're going to have to be Canal and River Trust certified. They're going to have all the risk assessments. You're going to need the boats in there, possible canal closures. The bridge abutments need repairing. There's a lot of washout under Turnover Bridge at the moment, and the coping stones need replacing. There's been vandalism recently that needs addressing. Further to that, for amenity use, it would be nice to see some sort of picnic site for car parking so the broader community can come down to the canal and actually make use of it there. That would be brilliant. Obviously the plan isn't fully cemented in place yet, it's still fluid, so that can still be done. And finally, you need to remember
Thank you,
you're going to
Mr.
have a
Baxter.
great view of the
Thank you, Mr.
industrial
Baxter.
estates.
Are there any
over
points
the
of
road.
clarification? No? Thank you. Darren or Catherine, any points you need to come back on? No? Okay.
So I'm due to speak on number 8 as well. It's similar concerns, but I'd quite like to get away with the sun now.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thank you for letting us
getting a
know.
bit restless.
Okay, thank you.
But same thing for Falkland Farm Development.
Right. To enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation which is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed? Is that seconded? Thank you. Any member? Councillor Sargent.
Yeah, one of the things that I sort of picked up, and it might be in the plan, is a footpath on Gypsy Lane, because even sort of, you know, even as it stands, as it is at the minute, it's sort of quite windy. It's a fairly fast road, so you know, I know there's a cycleway and a footpath that goes through it that connects in with the cycleways and footways, but you know, potentially people will walk down the road or try to walk down the road. The other thing that I picked up is the access to the site when it's being built, because there's a 7.5 tonne weight bridge, I think it is 7.5 tonne on Gypsy Lane. And then Marston Lane, I think, is 7.5 tonne except for access, so we're about to come down there. So basically they're going to be coming up the Wadsworth Road or through Bulkington, because they can't come from the M69 because that's an 18 tonne weight. So there's only going to be one way in and one way out. So all of a sudden we're going to get lots of trucks and waste, you know, travelling on sort of roads that are, I mean, the top end of Gypsy Lane towards Bulkington Lane is deteriorating quite badly already. Also, trucks are, quarry trucks are using Donington Avenue as a cut through, which they shouldn't be doing. So I just want to know how they're going to manage access to the site.
Okay, thank you. But we do have Ben, a highways officer from the county, who might want to respond to them, please, Ben.
So, as part of the, to start with the pedestrian works, excuse me, there is a proposal to improve footway cycleway along Gypsy Lane towards the existing residential area, but the footways are going to be set back within the site, and that will be dealt with through reserve matters. There's also a contribution to change the speed limit on Gypsy Lane as part of the works as well, to reduce it from its existing limit. We're introducing a new community that isn't there at the moment. Having a high-speed road next to a new community isn't very conducive. We've got to change the nature of the road. So we're going to be getting rid of the sharp bend through these works and reducing the speed limit and providing footway pedestrian connectivity to the existing residential area. In terms of construction traffic, well, like Councillor, there are limited routes. With Nuneaton and Bedworth, we will ask for a construction management plan, and as part of that we will look for HGV routing to be agreed with the applicants, and with Nuneaton we'll try and agree suitable times for deliveries to take place, especially if they're going past schools or sensitive locations.
Okay, thanks, Ben. If we just bear in mind this is an outline application, so lots more detail would come back to us anyway at some point. Councillor Trotman.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I am unenthusiastic about this development for historic reasons. Like some of the other councillors, I was against the previous attempt to build there. However, I keep an open mind. I look at this and I see that by going through the papers, there is just no planning reason that I can get hold of that I think the council could sustain if we were to reject this and go to appeal. And I think that's because it's in the borough plan, and whilst I feel that those in the borough plan are too high and that they ought to be brought down, until that happens, until such day as that ever happens, we have the plan we have. And it has been passed, and this is in it, and this is part of it, and as I say, on that basis, and highways aren't objecting and all the rest of it, there's nothing there. So I cannot find a reason to vote against this. And there are some silver linings. The road being made much safer and slower and straightened out and having the lights on it will be much better. A footpath that's set well away from the road, actually on the site itself. Things like this make me feel a lot happier. I'm very pleased to hear Ben talk about the traffic management plan there for the construction, and hope that that will include wheel washes and whatever, because it's such a mess up at the other end with the quarry sometimes. We don't want to add to that and make the existing set of lives miserable by having a whole load of dust and mud and whatever. So there are some good things coming out of this. An awful lot of sill. And although the applicant hasn't been too happy about parks and sports development, good on them for asking. Don't ask, you don't get. So I'm very pleased that the council has looked to press for as much sill as it can out of that. That's part of taking new development, is that the wider community gets compensated for that, and that the appropriate money is made available for the extra use of schools and open spaces. So there are some silver linings to this. I wish we weren't having to build on this bit of farmland because our borough numbers in our plan are smaller, but they're not. And with the plan that we have, as I say, I cannot find a legitimate reason to reject this.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got a few points I wanted to bring up, and you'll probably correct me if I'm staying at the right place or the right place. But the MPPF outlines a need to minimise the impact of proposed developments on biodiversity. I was going to ask if, like I say, it's probably at the wrong place, but when this estate is built, if the estate's built, we could have some biodiversity corridors going through it. There's lots of different ways we can do things like that, hedgehog-friendly gravel boards and things like that. There's all different things, and back boxes and stuff like that. But rather than just getting rid of the fields, replacing with something. I do notice that Warwickshire Wildlife Trust have been consulted and raised no objection, which I just find a bit bizarre. Is that because they have no objection, or is it because they might have been out of the office at that particular time? The ecological survey provided by the applicant has surveyed the site with protected notable species in mind. Firstly, in regard to bats, 2 trees were to be removed, numbers 11 and 12 on the perimeter plan, which are near to the edge. And so the 2 trees that are noted are to be removed. I just found that a little bit of a problem as well. I did also notice on the turnover bridge at Canal and River Trust have objected against this, and are still objecting against it. So that's obviously a problem that we need to look at. I would like to know I know you've said that our parks have said some part of it, but did the countryside part of the park say anything? Because usually Matt and Eleanor would have something to say on something as big as this. The destination parks, I think it would be will both benefit, both Meaton and Bedworth, but destination parks can benefit from this. And I'm just a bit disappointed that parks are getting overlooked really on this, and our parks objections should be taken seriously by any developer when they're coming to this borough. So I'm just a bit disappointed on the way parks have been overlooked. And that's all I have to say, thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Catherine or Darren to address the thing about the canal bridge, because I think that's something that we've probably all noticed and got some slight concerns about. And I think in relation to the biodiversity thing, it's a good point to make about runs for hedgehogs and other animals. But I think maybe that's one to save up for the detail, and obviously the agents here, listening to what's been said, so we'll probably take it on board ready for that. So could you try and clarify some stuff about the canal bridge, please?
Right. The concern about the turnover bridge, there has been a structural survey and a viability assessment done of the bridge. The Canal and River Trust aren't objecting to the use of the bridge. What they're objecting to is the mechanism by which the works to the bridge take place and the future maintenance of it. Now, the bridge itself isn't within the application site. Indeed, the towpath is in between the edge of the application site and the bridge, which is also not owned by the applicant. It's a similar situation with the land on the other side, in that the bridge isn't owned by them either, although that site does actually abut up to the bridge. Because of that, officers feel that the only thing that they can do is ask for a contribution towards utilising that bridge as a footpath and cycleway. Now, that contribution will include three amounts of money. One, a contribution towards actually laying it out as a footpath and cycleway, and the feasibility study did include some costs for doing that. And there's a contribution from this site and there's a contribution from the other site on the other side of the road. That's not, sorry, the other side of the canal. That's not completely covering the whole cost of that footway and cycleway, because the idea is that that will link into the wider network, which includes links through to Bermuda Station and further afield, and links across the land to the east of this site through to the existing footpath cycleway, which goes through the Master Lane site and over the bridge through Paul's land. So it's not just these developments that will be using that link, and that's why it's only a contribution rather than half the cost of the whole land. So it's a contribution to that. There's an amount to do with the legal works, which the county and the borough council would have to work together to do, to actually designate that footpath cycleway as a footpath and cycleway, which is a provision under the Highways Act. And there will also be a cost in the Section 106 towards 10-year maintenance period of the footpath and cycleway as it goes over the bridge. I hope that clarifies it. Just to say that the bridge isn't, as I say, the bridge isn't in either of the application sites, nor is it in either of the allocations in the local plan. So asking for a contribution is not different to us asking for a contribution towards George Eliot Hospital. We have no control over, once that contribution is in, it's up to us for George Eliot Hospital, we just pay it over, and they then have to tell us how that money is spent. So it's not unusual that we ask for contributions for off-site contributions. I think the difficulty here is that the bridge is so close to both application sites. But once that contribution is received, the county council and the borough council will work together with the Canals and River Trust to facilitate that footpath cycleway going in.
Ben, you wanted something to add to it?
Yeah, I just want to say I fully support what Catherine's just said from the County Council's perspective. The County Council can't use any of its mechanisms because there is no adopted road which the bridge links onto. We can only use our powers based on adopted highway or adopted footpaths, and it's not a public right of way either. So I fully endorse what Catherine's just said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. I am a little concerned. I want a clarification from the officers in terms of what we were allowed to discuss and what we weren't, because I know some items that appeared on page 55 for not discussion, and then some have appeared on 57 say they are for discussion. I was a little confused on that. It's come a little bit clearer. I am surprised how quick this has come back to committee, especially as the inspector said they're using sequential approach, using brownfield space. I'm aware to sat with officers for 2 years with agreements, but I have concerns about the consultation with the residents being over 2 years ago and the lack of any new consultation. I do feel the landscape and visual impact assessment has moved on in 2 years, and I feel it needs doing again. And the report in IV I think it's L1, LA, states the effect on visual immunity is substantial. And I feel that a buffer zone is needed around the red deep side rather than just landscaping. Highway safety and is all a bit vague in there. It says potentially support a reduction, potentially support a speed reduction, potentially support a new bus service coming in. Well, that's up to the bus company whether they'll do that now. I'm a little surprised it's in there. And in terms of the equality, I am aware, living not far from the site, about the amount of already green area lost space, including the reeds on the front side of the development, which were absolutely decimated by the developer. And I feel the ecology survey is outdated. Comments about badgers, I know there's turtle doves on there, and the area's got water whales. It's 2 years out of date now, and I felt that needs doing again. I would ask that the TPOs are put on trees that they can't be moved prior to any development, because I've got real concerns with the way the reeds went. That would be the way the trees would go before it came back to this committee. I'm aware of what was being proposed in terms of the neighbourhood centre, but would hope it would not be to detriment of the current 2 centres in the areas. The highway conditions, and you said about straighten out, could that be conditioned so it is done before the development starts? Bearing in mind we've said about the lorries only coming in one way, and there's a bend in the road. I wasn't sure where the roads led up to in terms of the quarry, and I don't know if anything you could show me in terms of that. Because obviously the quarry's on Gipsy Lane, and I'm just not sure where the 2 openings into the site would be in relation to the quarry site. Thank you.
Catherine, Darren, points to come back on with consultation road improvements before. I think that's 2.
Yeah. Would you like to point out on there, Darren, where the 2 accesses are onto Gipsy Lane and where the quarry is actually off this map, it's down here. the access to the quarry is fairly close to the junction with Coventry Road. But that's where the new roundabout is, and that's where the other junction is. The quarry is the other side. You see the access that goes up to what was the old Falklands Farm? Well, the quarry access is even to the west of that. And as regards to the consultation, yes, you're correct that the consultation was carried out when the application was submitted. But that's the same for any application we've had for any length of time. There hasn't been any great changes to it that required us to carry out any further consultation.
Councillor Longden.
And yeah, I'm not sure what year it was, but it goes back to my county council days when the bridge on Gipsy Lane was given a 7.5 to the rating, which I believe was merely to deal, or only to deal with the quarry traffic. And I'm pretty sure that it was, that the rating is higher than that. So I don't know if that needs checking or not. But if other traffic's going to be coming down there, possibly needs to be checking, especially if it's a bus, maybe, I don't know. So that needs to be taken into consideration. It's good to see, after all these years, that the road may be straightened slightly. But coming down from the quarry, people put their foot down. Without those bends, they're going to keep their foot down. And it's interesting for me to hear the county officer saying to put the speed limit on. But you're very careful to say, not to say what the speed limit would be. And personally, I think it should be 30 miles an hour, especially going down there. But the county council's policy is that they won't put a 30 mile an hour speed limit on a road which has fields on the side, except if it's Bulkerton Road, going between Whitestone and Bulkerton. For some reason that seems to be exempt. Everywhere else seems to be applied in 40 mile an hour limit at least. And I know that for a fact because we've been trying for years, and so have the county councillors and council in our area, trying to get something done with Ansley Road. And there's been point blank refusal. We go from 50 to 30 to 30 to 40, 40 to 30 to 50. It's a nonsense. And if we're going to do the same on this road, it's going to be very, very dangerous. So I hope he's listening, and I hope he's going to take it back that we want a 30 mile an hour limit on that road, because anything else is going to be absolutely awful.
Okay, I'm going to ask Ben to address those. There was 2 points, I think, is about the bridge weight and also the speed element along there whilst the road operating.
If I deal with the speed first, the reason I didn't say a speed limit was because the proposal for the access arrangements and straightening out of Gipsy Lane is to go through a design process and technical approval. And that process will set the speed because we have to work with Warwickshire Police. And it's Warwickshire Police who actually enforce our speed limits across the county and tell us what we can have and what we can't have in terms of enforceable. And they require us to use all our engineering tools before they will then use speed enforcement measures. That's the reason why at the moment we have this policy where we have 40 miles per hour with fields to this on one side of the road. This is slightly different because it will be designed, therefore there will be an element where we might be able to design it for 30 miles per hour, but the whole of Gipsy Lane will not go to 30 miles per hour. It would only literally be that section. But I can't guarantee that would happen. It's down to the design works at present, and that will be something that will come through the application in terms of the conditions for the access arrangements. In terms of the weight limit was there for the quarry. At the moment, there's no proposal to change that limit. The buses we perceive will come in through the residential area, loop round and come back out again, because there's nothing actually that they would serve further down Gipsy Lane towards Coventry Road. And as you heard from Councillor Conticore, if we get the footway cycleway in over the turnover bridge, you can actually then get onto the Coventry Road, which has a good bus corridor within it as well. So we feel there's sufficient provision at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? I did have my own name down, and I just wanted to be absolutely certain on something, and it's to do with the difference of opinion in regard to the SIL contributions. So the 2 that are listed as NBC Parks and NBC Sports Development, and I want to be sure that they are still part of our request to the developers if we're looking at granting this permission. And I say, sorry, I've not explained myself very well. Are they still included in this? Because obviously the applicant has not, one has not fully accepted and one has not accepted to be considered compliant with SIL. What is the officer's opinion of that? Is that still included in our request?
I think I understand. As regards the sports development funding, which is set out on in the table on 67, we have requested those of the developer, but the developer considers that they're not SIL compliant and has suggested that they won't pay those. As regards the parks provision, there is a hierarchy of provision and monies. Just to answer Councillor Watkins' question earlier, it was Matt that replied to the response. So it's not just parks, it was for the countryside as well. An element of that contribution is for a destination parks. And our destination parks are Riversley, Whittleford and Refiners Welfare. And the developer or the agent for the owner considers that they're not SIL compliant, and so it's only that amount of that contribution that he's not willing to pay. That sort of answers Councillor Shepherd's question earlier, because everything else on the table on page 67 and goes on to 68 has all been accepted by the developer. So there's parts of the first 2 items on there And they're broken down on page 69, but the rest of the items on there have been agreed by the developer and will be put into the legal agreement.
You see, those, from my point of view, those first two items give me an issue. And I understand that we shouldn't be seen as selling an application to gain monetary value or whatever for other things. But I find it difficult to understand why, underneath that, if you look at the George Eliot Hospital Trust, etc., NHS Joint Health Request, they're not a problem. Yet the first two are, yet both of those first two items provide a good means for the health and well-being of the residents of this borough. And so I've got a serious issue over that if people are suggesting that's to be removed. Excuse me. The agent, when he was talking, actually said that we should actually approve this application without hesitation. Yes, it's possibly right in regards that it's now part of the adopted local plan, but I'm not going to make any decision without hesitation, otherwise there'd be no point of us being here. And that gives me a serious cause to hesitate, those first two items. The agent also described the plan as being south of Nuneaton, which it is. But I would suggest to you, it's probably nearer to Bedworth than it is to Nuneaton. And anybody that will be living in that area will be, at some point, using our destination parks and facilities. And so, I'm sorry, I can't agree to the removal of those. If you're telling me that's the case, then I will vote against the application. But if they're still part of it, I'm happy for it, except for it when it comes back with the detail. Okay. The recommendation, which has been moved and seconded, is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed. Although,
Can I just ask, just for clarification? Just for clarification now, I need to know what I'm voting for. So, yeah, but are they a condition? Are they still being put in, or are they not?
If you look at the table on page 67, on the parks contributions, the contribution requested of the developer of £946,206.61, of which, on page 69, it says that the developer is unwilling to pay £237,220.25. So they are willing to pay 700 and... in regards to the parks contribution, and that would be agreed and within the legal agreement. If you look at the sports development contribution on the 67, that's for £1,357,637, and again, if you look over on page 69, that's the whole amount that the developer has suggested he's not willing to pay. Just to clarify what Councillor Hancock said, the reason, one of the reasons is, whilst there are overarching policies within this local plan to cover both contributions towards sport and countryside and open space, this specific policy doesn't actually mention them in its key development principles. It does mention the things like the George Eliot Hospital Trust and the infrastructure for Warwickshire County Council. All the other strategic policies do include sports provision and open space. So that's just to clarify that, that's part of the reason why the applicant is suggesting he's not willing to pay those.
I'm going to take Councillor Tromers and I'm going to move to the vote because I was at the voting stage. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do appreciate this. It's just from what the officer said. Is it a simple matter for us to be able to amend it then and include it in the policy? No. Would we be able to defend on appeal? Your opinion?
That's difficult. As I say, there are policies in the plan. I think it's HS2 for sport and NE2 for open space that would give us some comfort in being able to defend it at appeal. However, the developer is correct, as I've just said, that that particular strategic policy for that site does not include those, whereas all the others do. So that would certainly weaken any case we would have to do.
Thank you. Right, let's see where we're going with it. The recommendation which has been moved and seconded is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and conditions printed. All those in favour of that? And against? 6. And abstentions? Somebody not? Oh, Jim's gone. Right, okay.
That's lost.
Yeah. The recommendation is lost. At this point, we need a different proposal being put forward. Yeah, thanks for that. But normally I'll cross my arms and wait for somebody to come up with something. But I think probably because the land's identified, we kind of know where we're going on it. The difference seems to be on a particular couple of points. Can I move that we defer the item to allow further discussions between the developer and the planning officers? Is that seconded? Okay, all those in favour of that? And against? And abstention? Okay, so that's carried. So that's deferred for those discussions. Oh, she declared it. Okay, so that takes us on to